Tin Man Knight back with a video that I've had lots of friends and family and other people reach out and ask me questions about. So one of the big questions I get is, what are the rules and how do I find them for Buhurt and duels and everything of that nature? So what I got in front of you is Google Chrome, opened up Buhurt International website. So you may not be using Buhurt International rules. You might be using IMCF or some version of it, or the league that your team might be in different countries may be different. I also want to preface this with saying I am new to the sport. I'm no expert with it. One advantage I think I have over most people probably is my day-to-day job as an engineer. I go through electrical code books and things of that nature that I am constantly looking at this sort of nomenclature and rules and parsing through it and figuring out what's correct. So I have somewhat of an advantage over most people. Don't take anything I'm telling you to say your weapons, your items you're maybe making yourself or you're ordering online are going to be accepted by marshals of the sport. I'm not one. Just simply, this is where the rules are at. This is how I've interpreted them for some of my own armor. If you may have seen my short with an axe I made, this is how I interpreted much of it for it. And so don't take any of it to as sound advice that this is exactly what it is. Use your own critical thinking and talk to your team, talk to your captains, figure it out together. Don't just take my word and my advice for it. Talk to a marshal, talk to the authenticity people. I'm going to show you how to contact here with Buhurt International. So to start with, Buhurt International, I'm just going to go to the regular top of the link here and walk you down to the rules and policies. You can see in my screen I have clearly been to the website plenty of times. So rules and policies up in the top left. There's options here to kind of give you a quick link to the sections, but scrolling down, find them all. Information for different just general policies on the executive level, what your marshal's rules are, rules for the marshals if you're curious or you wish to be one. Tournaments, what are the duel regulations, different tournament structures if you wish to attend or have your own tournament that you wish to put on. Authenticity is the biggest one. I think most of the typical just, hey, I'm competing in the sport, I need to make sure my equipment is correct. So general armor, general weapons, what happens if you have an infraction, and then this is a chart, a very kind of quick chart, which I'll bring up in a minute. And then there's very specifics down here on your armor, different types of helmets, clap visor, great helm, so on. Neck protection, your aventels, gauntlets, shields, bucklers, sabatons, everything through here. And you'll see in a lot of these, they'll mention things like leathers and cloths on like a brigandine or on belts or around the edges of your aventel. The cloth on your aventel must meet certain textile leather rules, or aesthetic decorations such as gilding, plating, engraving, any sort of heraldry or different symbols on your equipment. They'll follow the rules on some of these here as well. Keep that in mind. I'm going to show you I'm just going to go with the side hinged visored bassinets because that's the helmet I worked with, and then we'll look at weapons to start off with here. So side hinged visors gives you an index. All of these are basically the exact same standard layout. Makes it simple. You just see one, you go through it, they're all in the same order. Definition tells you what they mean by the specific thing. Side hinged in this case is they're literally hinged on both sides. Their clap visor is going to be up at the top, or they may not be hinged at all. Side hinged, hinge each side, and they pivot, swivel upwards. These are three different types of a side hinged helmet. Historical data. So this is a sugarloaf. The difference between a sugarloaf and, let's say, a normal bassinet is there is a built-in neck piece here, but they are still a side hinge helmet. Transitional style helmets. So this gets into like the time period basically where you're moving between 14th and 15th centuries, so like 1380, 1420s. So these are going to be things on Romance of Alexander, stilettos, other flat-faced bassinets. Helmet I have chosen is a stiletto. Romance of Alexander, there's examples down here, but this is a Romance of Alexander. This would be a normal stiletto bassinet. It's just a little difference in the design of the decoration and shape of the visor. I'm not going to read through all the details, but they'll show historical references here in different manuscripts, and they may also show preserved pieces in museums and things of that nature. So it's a good example of, hey, I did buy this helmet. They might have an example right here for why your helmet is historically relevant and accurate, and time periods from which it was shown, which is really nice. Your helm skulls, examples, like I said, historical reference, and manuscript drawings. Different styles of helmets here. Again, different references. There's requirements here, general requirements, your visor requirements, your eye slots, your Aventel connections, what they should look like on the side hinge. This is a Sugarloaf. Again, this looks like the Romance of Alexander, but you'll notice the neck bar right here is a solid piece. That's the difference, again, from the Sugarloaf to the other helmets. You'll see Romance of Alexander. Here's a stiletto. Stiletto bassinet, Romance of Alexander. Here are some, I believe these are just more examples. They'll show approved examples and ones that are not approved as well on much of these. The Great Bassinet, which would be considered other flat face, because it does have the big neck guard. They're set up a little different. Denied reproductions. They explain why. Too many eye bars. This isn't one solid piece, so it doesn't count as a Sugarloaf. And there's an added piece. It must be concealed under the Aventel or under the chainmail. This one appears to come down too far. The way this angles down, it comes down really far onto the chin. And then if there's any change log from 2024 to 2025 or whichever year this happens to be when you're watching the video, and this is version 2025, number 1. If there's a change throughout the year, they'll put a 2. So let's go back. So that's just a general with the helmet, or one of the helmets. We can look at, I'll show you the chart, because the chart's pretty cool. It's pretty simple. Technical requirements for permitted weapons. So bladed weapons. They talk about type 1 bladed, armored swords, falchions, sabers. You have long swords, and I'm not sure if the type 3 is, I believe it's two-handed falchions and longer weapons of that nature. Weights and everything are in kilograms and centimeters. So if you have a falchion, it has to be between 1.1 minimum, 1.7 maximum kilos, length of 72 to 100 centimeters, overall length, and then length of the blade 60 to 80, length of the handle anywhere from 12 to 20. Hilt should not extend more than 35 millimeters over the bearer's hand. So length of basically the hilt. And then again, hafted, which would be axes, pole axes, two-handed axes, pole arms, things of that nature. So I had a one-handed axe that I made, which I believe counts as a type 2 hafted axe, one single-handed. When I made, that you may have seen on the shorts, is about 1,200 grams. I'm actually going to grind it down a little thinner. And the reason being is that all the edges must have 8 millimeters or less, and more than 2 millimeters for some of the rules, and mine's just under 8. I'd like to grind it down some more, take a little weight, take a little more thickness out of it. Again, length in centimeters. Striking edge, meaning the length of the axe head where it actually hit, has to be greater than 7 centimeters. And then here's some about stuff with flanges on maces, sharp corners, things of that nature. And then here's some specific outrance bladed weapons or things for specific, I believe they're for specific duels and pro fights. I think they're for pro fights. Don't quote me on that one. And again, you have an upwards error of about 100 grams. Anything heavier or that's meant to thrust is not allowed. Edges have to be rebaited, meaning kind of rounded, thickness 2 millimeters or more. This applies to the striking and non-striking edges of all weapons. They must be at least 2 millimeters wide. Radius of all edges must be more than 10 millimeters, meaning the points of swords, points of axes, things of that nature have to be, there's different martial tools, and basically if you took a 10 millimeter across circle, that you'd still see metal around that circle, that it wouldn't be any tighter of a sharp turn than that. And they must be historical and authentic. And then here's stuff about shields. Shields weight, length, width, so on. There's rules for bucklers that they must have metal or wood if they're made of metal or made of wood. You have to follow the fabric, leather, textiles, so on, and any images as well. So that's the Buhurt International rules. Quite a lot of detail, quite a lot of information. The league I am in is typically with Wichita Bison, or typical tournaments we're going to do most places in America should be the American Medieval Combat Federation. They will follow typically the International Medieval Combat Federation rules. Well, IMFC rule set is what they're going to follow. Here's a list of their basic rules here. Here's their rules and regulations. Version 5. Your armor, your helmets is a big general term. Goes through. It's fairly similar layout to what the Buhurt International shows. Table of contents. You're going to go through equipment. It's going to kind of give definitions of what primary armor, what a helmet is, and all the rules of thickness. What type of metal has to be this thick, faceplates, titanium's not allowed, torso, hands, so on. It'll go down to swords, axes, giving you the general rules for armor, for duels, for melees and Buhurt events, and so on. There are specifics to duels regulations, elite professional fights or pro fights, your group fights, which are melees, Buhurt. If you get in trouble, what those actions mean, equipment, weapon specifications. So these are very similar to the international Buhurt ones. They talk a little bit more. Here's the minimum, maximum that I was mentioning with my axe. Rounded, not sharp, so on. You must have no graters, nicks, uneven surfaces, chips in your weapons before a match. You must get them smooth, you must have them clean. You don't want any edges that could cut or hurt somebody. War hammers and picks and things of that nature. If you're using rattan, it has to be hidden, and so on and such. You just have to read through these, lots of information. The weapons section here is fairly similar. If we look at where's the one-handed axes? The lengths, instead of 50 to 90, it's 40 to 90. Weight is the same, 1.3 kilos or 1,300 grams. This is the radius of your curve. Length greater than 7, same. Shaft can be wood or steel, and there's some rules around it being steel, how it has to weld to the head. There's also rules of it being wood. There has to be more than one connection, like it has to be wedged and have a pin through it, or some other way to connect it, just to verify it's not going to fly off, that it is solidly on there. So I wanted to show this just to share kind of probably the most stringent that I've found is Buhurt International. Typical in the US that you're going to find is AMCF. If you're looking at like armored MMA that they do out of Nashville, Tennessee, they may have some different rules of their own. Their pro fights are kind of unique rules, might have different rules in weapons, armor. I know there's several other smaller, different kind of one-off leagues. There's armored combat, the different names, that they may or may not have specific rules for their events. So whatever event you're going to, make sure you're trying to follow authenticity, you're trying to follow safety is the biggest one. To go back to authenticity, these down here specifically are for authenticity as well as safety to some extent. if you need to talk to an authenticity person, contact them right here, authenticity@buhurtinternational.com. Marshals, you want to learn about marshal stuff, you want to set up a tournament, you have questions, contact them right here at the bottom of it. You have a helmet, hey, I want to order this helmet, I'm not sure if it meets authenticity. You have armor, you're not sure, message, just ask. That's all you can do. It's not going to hurt to do that. Beyond your team captains, your other team members that maybe already been through this, maybe they don't know, maybe you're kind of on your own, you're in an area where you don't have a lot of support, come here, ask, look through all of this, there's forums, there's contacts here, take it to the bottom. This is where you go to ask, get that information. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully this answers a lot of questions of where do I find out the rules? How do I start? This is a part of it. I'd like to do some more videos on where to find a team, but this is a good start. This is, what does my armor look like? What do the rules look like? What are the event rules? Maybe your experience, you're like, well, I want to be a marshal. Well, here are the rules for a marshal, and talk to them to learn how to become an official setup, paperwork, everything done as a marshal to do tournaments and events in your area. So again, hopefully this helps. If I said anything wrong, or there's some rules, sites, things I'm missing that you think should be shared that are important, put it down in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to check into it. Love to make another video. I want to share everything with you guys. I want to be able to help others. I want you guys to see everything there is to see. And just thank you guys for watching.